Hi, everyone. Welcome to another KE Report webinar. I'm your host, Corey Fleck. In this webinar, we are featuring Aztec Minerals. I am chatting with the President and CEO, Simon Dyakowski, as well as the VP of Exploration and Chief Geologist, Joey Wilkins. Aztec is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AZT and on the OTCQB under the symbol AZZTF. Now, this webinar is going to be very much focused on the initial drill results from this Tombstone deposit or Tombstone project that the company holds in Arizona. Now, some of these headline numbers, just to bring everybody up to speed, had 0.94 grams per ton gold and 42 grams per ton silver over almost 78 meters. Now that does equal 1.6 grams per ton gold equivalent. Again, this is very much the first initial drill results at this project. So Simon, let's get into this presentation and answer any questions. If there are any questions that any of you have, please type it in to this program. I will be monitoring those questions and we will take care of those either at the end or throughout this general update. Again, focused on the recent drill results. Simon, please take us away.
Thanks, Corey, and we appreciate the opportunity to get your listeners and some of our investors up to speed on the initial results here from our 20-hole 3,000-meter RC drill campaign at Tombstone. Just to put into context here, I'll flip through some slides where we're located. It's one of Aztec's two flagship properties, Tombstone, the other one being Cervantes in Mexico, but we are currently active on Tombstone this fall. It's located in southeastern Arizona. Just for our listeners who may not be familiar, Tombstone is a town well known for two things. One being mining, and the second being a 30-second long gunfight that occurred in 1881. That'd be a little too shocking. And it's now known as the shootout at the OK Corral. And many are familiar with a number of old Western books and films that shootout inspired. But more importantly for Aztec, Tombstone is famous for silver mining. It's an area that's mined over between the 1880s and late 1930s, over 32 million ounces of silver, primarily from high-grade silver veins and CRD deposits. The property we have, what we're focusing on right now, is on the contention open pit. So this open pit was in operation, in fact, as late as 1989, but primarily between 1980 and 1985, it was an open pit mine where a private company was mining epithermal, shallow gold silver mineralization. So low grade gold and silver in a heap leach. So on the slide that we're looking at right here, you can actually see a view into the open pit and back towards the town. The reason that Aztec was interested in acquiring this project was, for two reasons. One of them was some deeper CRD potential, but also for looking at the expansion of the open pit. We feel there might be good exploration upside to the north, to the south of the pit. A lot of the historic mining took place in high grade, in veins. Old time miners were mining through tunnels, and they left a lot of material that runs very well through a heap leach. So, today we wanted to discuss the first 4 holes of the drilling that we did in the center of the pit, and touch on some key things. One of them being that a typical heap leach in the area will be running grades of between 0.4 and 0.6 grams per ton gold, and we've just pulled our first headline hole was 77 meters of additional material that is 2 to 3 times that grade. So we're really pleased with the result, and really want to put that into context. A lot of investors look at various different deals and they might not know how to kind of put the different grades in different buckets, but it really depends on what you're looking to mine and how. So in a heap leach, it's very much a low grade operation, and we're very pleased to have that result. I'll just flip down to this slide here. It shows our updated plan map. We drilled the first 4 holes in the center of the pit, so the circle is highlighted there. Hole 2, 3, 4, and 5. As mentioned, they all hit good grades, good low grades, but on the higher end of the heap leach scale. So maybe with that, I'll pass it over to Joey here just to discuss, where we're at with the program, and maybe to touch on some of the upside that we see at depth to the north and to the south of the open pit, and maybe discuss a little bit at the size potential as we're running along strike here.
Yeah, you bet, Simon. Thanks again, Corey, for having us on. This is great. Right after our news yesterday, which we think is quite good. We're in the middle of a drilling program at the moment. Just came off break this morning, so they're in the south end of the pit right now, drilling what would be what we call TE3 actually. Just to give a quick update, we've drilled the holes in what we call the central part of the contention pit, and we finished off the holes in the north end as well. So the holes in the north end of the pit, they've already been sent to the lab. They've been received. So those are being processed. In the south end, we're going to finish off what we call these spokes, and with that in mind, then we'll jump up and do some more peripheral holes, maybe a hole back off the central pit, or the central spoke, which is also probably twin one of the USMX holes. The reason we like that is because some of their holes were left open-ended. They didn't pursue or follow up on a lot of these drill holes that had really good grades, gold and silver. And we've basically been able to confirm, based on our twinning of at least one hole, that their results are pretty close to what we're seeing. So at least we have decent confidence from that. Was done in 1993. I don't have any certificates or anything like that to confirm that, but we can use it as a very good guide. So being able to confirm the mineralization to the north end of the pit, the central part of the pit that we just had the press release on, and then the south end, that leaves us all this exploration potential basically between these spokes. So we can, if all those holes or most of them are mineralized, as we're expecting to see, because we're based on a visual that we see the good alteration, good style of alteration, mineralization. We are encountering tunnels, so we know we're drilling in the right spot, because that's where the old miners were underground mining. And if we can then start putting together additional holes between these spokes, then that's really going to open up the potential for. And this is all shallow. The first basically 50 to 100 meters is what we're looking at, and that's similar to what USMX did in the past. But our holes are going a little bit deeper. We like to think that there's additional parallel structures that are less known and could add volume and potential. So that's the contention zone. The contention pit that we're working on has about a 1 kilometer strike length. There's also indications that there's parallel zones, probably less, they're much more subtle based on the alteration, but maybe at depth they do change. So on the heels of this RC program, where we'll do about 9,000 feet or roughly 2,900 meters, then we're going to pre-collar a couple of holes, and that will be followed up either late this year or early next year with some deeper core drilling. Those are going to be going after the more traditional CRD Taylor style deposits. The big massive replacements of lead, zinc, silver, and copper, gold. And we feel pretty confident that those are going to be down there at depth. So that's from a
geological perspective, how important is it to get a handle on these different zones when you are dealing with something that is a kilometer long? And quite frankly, if you mine this in the typical sense, it's a lot of really just ground moving type of work.
Yeah, it could be. There's going to be probably low stripped, at least to start off with. If we are able to come up with a resource that's a mineable resource, and of course, getting through all the permits and whatnot. But yeah, there's a multitude of geological complexities out there that certainly play into it. And what the contention basically is I think it's two parallel structures that are hosted by porphyritic dikes. And the mineralization is not only within the dikes, but it's also peripheral in the Cretaceous sediments. And those are all brecciated, so we're seeing hydrothermal breccias, high silica content, immense amounts of hematite and goethite, which are all oxidation products of the different sulfides that were in there, at least in the upper 150 to 200 meters of the profile that we know of. So we feel confident that there's going to be at least a thick section of oxidized rock, and the stratigraphy out there is it's pretty traditional Southwest U.S. where you have a thick basin of Cretaceous sediments, which is what they call the Bisbee out here, mid-Cretaceous, and then beneath that are Permian and Paleozoic limestones, and those especially the Permian, those are the equivalent to what the Taylor hosts. That's about 60 kilometers to our west-southwest. So we're seeing a lot of the similar indications of those sort of peripheral mineralization, manganese oxide, silver in those limestones that are basically underneath all this sandstone that we're drilling through right now. So there could be a lot of vertical zonation and lateral zonation that we're gradually we're peeling back the layers on this. So eventually we're going to work our way down through this upper stratigraphy in the Cretaceous sandstone and work our way into the Paleozoics, where there's going to be potential for CRD and massive sulfide. They could be parallel to these dikes or just offset a little bit. As you know, they're these carbonate replacement deposits can be very discrete and isolated, but they can be very high grade and in the multi-million tons.
Joey, can you give us a little bit more background too on the historic drilling back in the 90s? I know that some of this drilling right now is more confirmation drilling to make sure their numbers make sense, but how else are you using that historic work?
We do like to use the historic data with caution. It sometimes we're able to locate the drill holes, the historic drill holes, and with that in mind, and we don't have any hole surveys, so we have to be careful where they potentially went. Plus, we're trying to incorporate all the underground mine workings, the data that we've been able to assimilate. But those drill holes, there were 86 shallow drill holes drilled by USMX all in 1 year. They did 2-phase back-to-back programs quite quickly. And the reason they left, I think, is that they were really excited about. I've talked to the chief geologist about this, and they thought the results were quite good. But I think they also had some other more global problems that they were trying to deal with, and this didn't quite fit their agenda at that time, so they pulled out. So they did 86 shallow holes. Prior to that, Santa Fe mining, their target concept was CRD and within the Paleozoic rocks, and that was most of their holes were off on the very far western side of our property, and then a couple off to the north. In fact, one was right on the northern edge of our property, and that actually did hit some 7 to 7.5 meters of massive sulfide with it's polymetallic. It's copper, lead, zinc, silver, with a bit of gold. So at least we have some confirmation that our ideas are realistic, that there's going to be deeper CRD within the Paleozoic section. So there are some other historic holes prior to that, but it's very hard to rely on any of that information. Don't have good geologic maps or logs or even assays to go with them. So we're very careful how we treat that.
Okay.
Hey, Corey, just to reiterate, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just to reiterate, the USMX drilling was limited as well to the north and the center of the pit. So not much in the south, and those drill holes were all between 80 and 120 meters. So we're taking those confirmation holes quite a bit longer than they did drill in the early 90s there.
Okay. One other point here, Simon. I'm seeing just to the east of this pit, looks like drill hole number 1 and another proposed drill hole are coming outside of this pit. What's drawing you to that area?
So drill hole 1, Joey, maybe maybe we can explain the target there. It was a geological target that didn't quite pan out. And Joey, maybe you could speak to target TD.
Sure. So subsequent to the open pit heap leach mining, they actually pulled out a lot of material and covered up all the geology. So there's very little geology that we can work off. So we're going on historic geologic maps, and they showed those maps showed a parallel dike to the contention pit. So we were looking at that, thinking that'd be a good place to start. Let's drill across that dike, see if it has similar characteristics to what we see in the contention pit. And we did hit, zones of alteration to peripheral to some narrow dikes, but the mineralization came back, I think mostly less than 100 ppb gold, and not nominal silver in the 5-gram range. But it shows that these we maybe at depth or further along strike that might change. There's also we did the airborne magnetics about just over a year ago with a drone, and that also kind of highlighted that area as being a dike. So we knew it was there. So we thought we'd take a stab at that. We're also going to drill just a little bit south of there. There's another slightly deeper conductor that came out of our AMT geophysics, which we did last year, actually earlier this year. So that's going to be a deeper target. So that's again, there's never been any, as Simon mentioned, there's never been any holes drilled in this area anywhere south of that central spoke. Basically, no drill holes to our knowledge. So this is all, it is a brownfield play, but in ways it's kind of greenfield, because we're testing new ideas, new concepts, and things that have never been tested in the past.
Okay, guys, there's a question that just came in that was asking about the balance between drilling in this pit area where you seem to have a lot more information and testing some other, in a way, almost greenfields targets. You addressed it a little bit there, Joey, but maybe you guys can give us a little bit more color on what the future drilling is going to look like around here.
I'll take the first question there. We'd like to continue to, as we learn more about the style of alteration mineralization from these preliminary phase 1 drill holes, then I think we can take that with that knowledge and then start stepping out. There are, as I mentioned, there is that parallelism there throughout the district that we see quite prominently, and there are based on what we can see from the historic underground workings, especially to the north off the property, there are multiple porphyry dikes that have that same trend, and they do come onto our property. And the best evidence we have that there is we see alteration on the surface that's similar to what we're seeing in the drill holes. We're just starting to get around to actually sampling those, both in all these different prospects that are out there in bedrock. So we think that there's going to be multiple zones parallel to this that could open up at depth, and there's basically no underground workings and virtually no drilling on those too. So there is a potential for that, absolutely.
Yeah, just to build on subsequent drilling, I mean, obviously that's going to be subject to confirmation and new results from, specifically the targets to the south and the exploration targets to the west and the east. But, we should highlight as well that when this mine was put into production, it was off the back of very little drilling. In fact, the group that put it into production, they were mostly relying on sampling from the old tunnels and from surface trenching. So that's what really led them into mining along that contention structure. So, there's a lot of work to be done in phase 2 in terms of infilling and planning that out. But we'll plan that in turn. Obviously, we're still just halfway through phase 1 here, but really liking what we're seeing, of course.
Okay, guys, let's get into some of the actual drill holes then, please.
Sure. So here's we have the cross section of TR2. This was the 77 meters of 1.6 grams gold equivalent, and maybe I'll rely on Joey to take us through the stratigraphy or lithology here, but you know, good results. Obviously, at the bottom of the pit.
Yeah, happy to, Simon. So hole 2 was essentially we're attempting to twin one of the USMX holes, and you know, we by and large we confirmed everything that they were seeing. You know, we took our hole a little bit deeper. We probably hit more tunnels than I anticipated, and we had you know, areas with no recovery, but between those tunnels, there's clearly some decent gold and silver mineralization. The upper zone is you know, it was nice and hardy with some pretty good high grade gold and silver, you know, surrounding one small tunnel. So you know, it's interesting that you know, these old timers back in 1880 were able to follow these, because they do seem very, very difficult and narrow, and they squeeze and open up, and I think if we start getting a better handle on where those tunnels are, then we can start either drilling around them or you know, drilling maybe the pillars, what we consider the pillars between the open stopes. But that mineralization that we're seeing in hole 2, it was largely what we call hydrothermal breccias. So we're seeing a mix of sediments and porphyry rocks cemented by multiple phases of quartz silica, and large amounts of hematite and goethite. And we are seeing you know, some cerargyrite, which is a silver chloride, and little bits of visible gold in and around the, you know, those tunnels in particular. So those guys were spot on back in the day. You know, at depth, we're seeing some interesting correlations between you know, some of the thin limestones which are within the Bisbee sediments. So the Bisbee sediments are largely sandstones and siltstones and some shales with some interbedded limestones as you get deeper in the section. So every time we hit those limestones, we know we start seeing weak scarnification. We're seeing lots of manganese, quartz, calcite, and then as the results are showing up, that we're seeing a bit of gold and silver with those as well. And those limestones, as you work your way towards town and some of the old prior historic mines, that's what they were mining historically, was those were turning into larger mantos, and those are the high grade mantos, silver, gold, lead, zinc, silver. So those are important for us to understand and where they are, because every time we hit them, we're going to be you know, we're going to have the potential to host some decent mineralization. So those, and we never really got into the Paleozoics either. So we're still in the Cretaceous, we're still in the sandstones, and that was the idea behind this program, was to just to drill some of the shallow mineralization and, you know, confirm what's there. And then we can use the, you know, once we get a better handle from the north end of the pit to the south end of the pit, you know, the different geochemical zoning, then hopefully that'll help us focus on the deeper CRDs as well in the Paleozoics. So it's kind of twofold. It helps us understand the near surface mineralization, but it's also going to help us, you know, project what's happening at depth. So that's going to be important.
Okay, so this was the headline number hole 2, right? This is that 77, almost 78 meters of 1.6.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And yeah, you can see that there's, you know, 9 meters of 3.2 grams with 135 silver and with the 4.87 gold equivalent. And then just behind that is 3 meters of you know, similar grade gold and silver. So that's it's a pretty nice zone. It's fairly shallow. That's the great thing about what we're seeing, Corey, is that everything's very shallow. You know, it's either starts out at the surface, like in hole 4, which is basically the same location. You can see that there's mineralization basically starting right near the surface, but then hitting similar zones. And you know what, we'll start you know, interpreting the, you know, the geology here pretty soon, and what these all, you know, how they all connect together. Yeah, we're you know, pretty happy with that.
Okay. And just to add there, you know, just to reiterate, really, you know, even down through the bottom of the hole, you're seeing, you know, gold equivalent of 0.4 grams, which is, you know, well within a heap leachable range. So, you know, extremely encouraging. And And just to note also that, the surface line there, that is one of the benches of the old mine. So we're not talking about anything that's necessarily, buried deep, that would necessitate a, punitive stripping ratio either.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is an encouraging hole. It's hole 2. Can we move on to some of the other holes, hole 3, and get those results?
Sure. Yeah, hole 3, just from a high level, it's again confirming, that the old timers had left a lot of economic rock by today's heap leaching standards. The headline there is 97 meters of over a gram equivalent. So that's, that would be 2 times what one would heap leach in that part of the world potentially. So, again, another excellent confirmation. I don't know, Joey, if you want to talk a little bit about.
This one looks fairly similar to the last hole too, in terms of the mineralization starting pretty close to surface, maybe a bit lower grade, but not much. Joey, more color on this, please.
Yeah, it's what's really appealing to me on hole 3 in particular is that it's this was drilled to the east, so it's basically running perpendicular to the north trend of the contention structures, the dikes and the mineralization. So we're basically running, that's going to be more of probably similar to a truer thickness of what we might see, and that mineralization that we see in hole 3, partway down the hole where you get that large bank of gold mineralization, you can basically project that up to the surface, and on the that sort of pit that they draw that's drawn in there, that would be, that eastern wall is actually mineralized with gold and silver. We've taken samples over there, and we can pull 3 kilograms silver and 23 grams gold out of hand samples in there. So we know that a lot of that's still mineralized, that they didn't mine that. So you can basically project that from the surface down through that zone that we hit in hole 4, and then there's probably some geological complexity why we didn't see it quite the same in hole 4. But, I've gone over some of the complex geology with Simon earlier today, and just talking about some of the things, how we challenges moving forward. But I know we can go and we can duplicate a lot of this type of this type of drill hole, not only hole 2 but also in hole 3, drilling across those structures that are running north-south. And this is good news for us. I think it's
Joey, can you expand on that a little bit? You're saying that you think that a step out holes close to this can duplicate these sort of results?
Yeah, I think if we start working our way to the north and to the south, basically drilling holes towards the east, that we'll be able to find more of this type of mineralization, shallow near surface mineralization. I think that's, what part of our part of the complexity out there is, since they subsequently mined a lot of the open pit, they've backfilled certain areas, so you can't see the old underground or historic workings. You can't see the structure, so that's why we're having to rely on the underground tunnels and the workings there, as well as the historic drilling. So we're having to piece it together based on that information. But doing these types of holes are basically confirmation of what we expect to find along strike towards the north and then to the south. So yeah, we'll start, we'll get together afterwards after the program and come up with a new plan. Probably follow up on these types of holes.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, this hole 4 and 5 that we have in front of us here, slightly lower grade, little less width to it in terms of interval length here, but still decent grades for this area, right? Mineable, arguably mineable grades.
Yeah, arguably mineable. Yeah, as Simon mentioned, yeah, you look at the silver gold equivalent on those, and yeah, they're quite good. So there's no reason why you couldn't heap leach that as well.
Okay. Guys, there's also a question that came in that wanted a little bit more color in terms of the true width estimated. It was quoted in the news release that hole 2, the true width was estimated at 20% of the apparent length, hole 3, 50%, hole 4, another 20%, hole 5, 40%. Can you give some more color on this, please?
Absolutely. As I was just mentioning about the exposure of the geology we're having, we don't have enough information to be very specific on that. But so they are estimates. We're going based on the underground tunnels and what we can glean from the USMX holes. But say hole 2 was designed to parallel and twin the USMX hole. So we weren't trying to deceive anybody with that. It's just okay. We want to confirm what was there, and we were able to. But as since it was drilled in a northerly direction, that is the general trend of the structures out there. But those are west dipping structures, and this hole was a little bit drilled towards the northeast. So yeah, we are still cross-cutting it at an oblique angle, and same with hole 5, which is drilled to the south. It's also cross-cutting it at an oblique angle. As best we can tell, those thicknesses are going to vary between 20 and 40%. Yeah, the best way to drill it is probably what we did with hole 3, where we're basically drilling perpendicular to those structures, and that would probably be a better representation of what we try to do in the future. So that way we get a truer width of what the mineralization looks like.
One more comment on this hole 3. It looks like the best grade came at the bottom of the hole. What does that mean to you guys?
On hole 3?
About halfway down.
Halfway down. It looks like, 67 meters down to 102 meters, right? The bottom interval there is the 1.7 grams gold equivalent.
Yeah, that's 67 to 102. So that would be that kind of in the middle part of the drill hole, the upper middle part. Yeah, that's where I think you can project that up to the surface, and that's what we see on the surface, on the east wall of the pit. So that would be, you would expect to see mineralization from there up to the surface. We can confirm that with additional drilling. And the other thing that's, that western wall, that slope and that line there, that's all mineralized as well. So you could basically, extrapolate from the drill hole over to the west side of that wall. That would be mineralized as well, with similar type grades. Okay. We've been able to see some of that on the surface, to confirm that on the surface.
Okay. Well, guys, when it comes to future news, I guess we're just waiting for the other drill holes to get back from the assay labs.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got holes pending from the north spoke, as you can see on the map there. So we expect those in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll have some results subsequent to that in the south spoke, and then some of the abreast targets to the west and the east. I just wanted to mention a couple of other points just to discuss future news flow in terms of next year and beyond. The thing that's great about this project, especially, the confirmation drilling aspect of it is it's a proof of concept model, as, Joey's aptly explained here, where we now have the confidence to look at infilling this. So, potentially through a phase 2 program, we could have, meaningful results that could add scale and scope to this project up and down that 1 kilometer structure. And that's also one of the reasons why we added a land position last week. That was also a recent news item that we should mention, that this is private land, extremely valuable to be working on projects in the US and private land. It makes potential permitting and mining issues, in a different league than if you were in, let's say on Crown land in Canada or on BLM land in the US. So we had the opportunity to add about 20 acres in the southwest of the project, which, could be instrumental in, in eventually advancing this project through to development, down the road. We also were able to stake some unpatented claims to the northeast. So again, kind of an opportunistic land acquisition based on what we've been seeing in the drill core. Through next year, you can see there's a lot of infill drilling that can be done along that yellow shaded area. So, there'll be naturally, eventually with enough data, we'll be able to to estimate, ounces and tons. So, it's almost a dream scenario for heap leach. And I'll also point out that a little bit of the Aztec's history with the project, which is important. We've heard a lot about USMX's interest and the previous group in the 80s, but Aztec picked this project up in late 2017, and we were just reviewing what the price of gold was, and it really was an opportunistic acquisition of a heap leach, given that gold at the time was trading at between $1,200 and $1,300 an ounce. So even with the pullback that we've seen in the last few weeks in the gold market and the silver market here, we're definitely above that inflection point where a project like this becomes extremely attractive in the marketplace, in the equity market. So again, I thought I'd point that out, right? It's the economics of these heap leaches change tremendously once you kind of get above that $1,400-$1,500 an ounce range.
Okay. Guys, we also just need to wrap it up with a quick question regarding cash still in the bank to, finish this drill program, continue it, and what do you think you'll be left with heading into next year?
Good question. We'll be left with a lot. So we just raised $3 million in July. It closed late July. This drill program, the budget for the 3,000 meters is in and around 500,000 Canadian. So RC drilling tends to be a little bit less expensive than core drilling on a per meter basis. So we're sitting at around $2.5 million right now, and we should end the program with I'd say about $2 million in the treasury. So ample room to expand, to test the CRD targets, as Joey mentioned, maybe later this year or very early in the next year. So yeah, to answer the question, we're sitting well with cash. There's no immediate or intermediate need to raise capital at this point. Okay.
Guys, any other points that you want to leave the listeners with, or potential investors here?
To summarize. Yeah, go ahead, Joy.
I was just going to say that we have to spend a little over 500,000, actually 600,000 at this stage to earn into the Tombstone property. Then we'll be 75% owners. With as there was a news release just out, I think day before yesterday, Dyakowski ended up resolving some debt with actually the underlying owners of what's now the Tombstone property is owned by a couple of private individuals. And those guys have been instrumental in the property ever since they acquired it. Dyakowski acquired it in 2011. So they've been keeping this. It's a sand and gravel operation, just for a little bit of context. So there's a lot of activity out there. They're running trucks in and out all the time. So we're going to be close to earning in right at the end of this first phase. We'll probably continue the program to earn in, just so we can get that over, and then we'll have a JV partner moving forward. So they'll be contributing 25% as well moving forward.
Okay.
Simon, final comments.
Yeah, just wanted to thank everybody who's tuned in, and Corey for hosting this. Just to reiterate, extremely encouraged by these results. Investors and interested parties have a lot to look forward to in terms of news flow in the intermediate period here in the next few weeks, with the next 2-3 batches of results to come out, still pending, and then announcements and analysis of phase 2, and an exciting project for a revived gold and silver market. Even though the last few weeks have been a little bit tricky, taking a breather, if you will, from just a crazy summer. But we got to keep in mind, I think that gold is still above $1,800 an ounce, near all-time highs that were only really all-time highs for a few short weeks. So we're really well positioned here, and I think investors as well are well positioned to enjoy some good news flow. And we look forward to having numerous updates on hopefully similar type results up and down that pit, and maybe some surprises.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate this update. And full disclosure, I am a shareholder of Aztec Minerals. We will also follow up as more news hits the market. Guys, keep us up to date. And if anybody else has any follow-up questions, please just email me, fleck@kereport.com, and I will get those answered for you, either personally or also through an interview on our show. Simon, Joey, thanks again for your time, guys.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.